Okay, so I've been thinking about this issue, about these things that are just so clear to me when I visualize some of these concepts we've been talking about. So clear to me that I can't get why you guys don't see them. I see you looking in this direction and all kinds of things, and it's one of these. It's like an experience of it if in the material world I held something up and you couldn't see it. And yeah, I have to ask, well, am I insane? And it's like, no, because when I ask you what you do see, you'll describe qualities. So I'm pretty sure you just haven't put the pieces together, but who knows? But anyway, I'm having this experience, and I'm remembering back to a couple decades ago when these things were becoming clear to me, right? Because I remember this was like a dream. I notice when a dream, sometimes there's a big issue with focus. You know, you're having a dream, but it's confusing. It's the childish, baby, infant patterns of color that you might imagine infants have, or something. You're trying to resolve it, and finally you can resolve and have a vivid dream sometimes out of that. And it's like whether you're focused or not seems to be important, and because there's the other side of it. I'll be having a vivid dream and get distracted by some tangent that like in ordinary life I would follow. I indulge myself in that for so that my mind is always challenged. I'm willing to take these tangents and see what's there. And but in a dream, so I look away from the vivid dream, and it's blackness. There's nothing there. There's no dream there, and I'll be in a dream state, confused, and many times I've experienced this as thinking that I couldn't see, no fear of I'm blind, but more like I can't see and I'm groping around. And the sense of touch often will be there in a way to refocus. But anyway, so it's much like that. Like these ideas were confusing, but I managed to become uncross-eyed and focus them into an image. And really, it started when I was 12 or 13, and I decided that I would answer the question of what is reality. You know, what that became the question of what does the word reality mean. Now, the first decomposition of that question is just the word in different forms, like the noun reality, what is a reality? The verb reality, what is the verb of reality? Cat. What is the verb of a reality? Okay, well, it's to realize or to be real. Okay. Um, the second decomposition, second order, is that even the noun form, for example, has multiple senses. A reality can mean different things. And another thing is once then you get this meaning, a word can have two meanings. One is what people intended to mean. So if someone says, I know this pen that isn't there is real, I know this USB stick is real. Well, what do they mean? What they intend is one thing, but also these experiences of things like this being real or this object itself for shorthand, then uh, uh, it could be that a reality, for example, a crazy person that's having hallucinations of dead relatives, they're living in a reality that has dead relatives in it. In that sense, a reality is the mental reality that you live in. But it can also be the saying that it's real as it's in this shared reality or this other set. Now, in both cases, it seems to me that you have a model in your head, right? So even if it's a model of the external one as opposed to a model of your dead relatives that aren't in the external one anymore, the so-called external one, it's always something in your head. So to me, the answer was that a reality is a model of things in your head, because every time you say this really happened, this is real, and I really think this or I really feel that, it always is reporting, if you're being honest, a big part of it, what you think, what your model in your head. Whether that model correlates well to an external or material source uh, is a different matter altogether. Okay. So this leads into the idea of theory as knowledge, because this is one I've noticed a lot of people confused about. That to me, is just so simple, and in one-on-one, people seem to get the elements, but then left to their own devices, they revert. as if they have some magnetic polarity that switches them back. But, you know, the idea that all knowledge is really just theoretical. Okay, it's all modeling. Okay, and then there's the empirical side where you compare your ability to model to what is actually in that set. So now I notice that all statements about reality are actually psychological expressions of an internal belief based on internal structures in your mind. So that's why I'm basically subjectivist. Now, in terms of what matters, this can be drawn from knowledge as theory and as practice. Okay, so the demonstration of knowledge. Okay, when we talk about what matters, everything matters. So it becomes, which question about mattering do you ask? So, for example, let's say you want to punish a murderer, and I want to punish the same murderer. Okay. What matters about that? Well, did he really do the murder? And we can find that out by the material facts. And did this person really lose their life because of him and this sort of thing? With material facts, which in the social situation happen to be one-to-one with the facts that we can share. Right? Like, we could both think the person is ugly, but we don't share that fact because that fact doesn't matter, right? Not in that context. But everything matters in some context. You know, in the context of courtship, of course it matters if you think that person is ugly. Okay. And again, the unicorn example, does it matter if you're seeing unicorns? Is the unicorn a material thing? Well, if you're in therapy with your psychologist, it is a material fact that you're seeing them. But when you look for the physical matter in a physical context, that's just going to be the energy and mass in your brain causing that. Unless they're real. But okay. So, so I think I might try to explain some of these things and sort of their genesis of where I remember it from unclear into clear. Because, it's really a set of things like this, that all knowledge is theory. For example, all knowledge is science, all knowledge, even your knowledge of a theory. I know what the theory of general relativity is. No, you have a theory about knowing it. You know what I mean? You have a theory in your head of what it is that corresponds in some way, not perfectly, to what it really would be. And you have a variability in how you would make a criteria of what is that theory really then? Is it all the stuff that's implied? Is it the stuff that we figured out already? Is it just an equation? Is it the intent of the equation? Is it all the writings of the scientists that created it? And then after that, there's whatever that theory is going to be considered as, and its relationship to the material facts that we have. So this is what leads to the skepticism. It's not an idea that we can't be powerful with our knowledge. It's an explanation of how we're powerful. And so some of the reactions to it, they're always opposite. As if the world, based on, probability, is going to become some random mess. Look, it's called a boundary condition. Look around you. It's not a random mess. It's ordered in a lot of different ways, including some very beautiful ways. And no matter how we decompose it, it's going to add up to that when we get back up to the top. Now, it might not turn out that at the bottom you got the little building block you hoped for. And maybe you're SOL now because you've made all these Lego creations out of these building blocks, and you hoped those Lego creations were essences and stuff. Well, they're not, but they're good enough. It's like Ptolemy was able to tell you where the planets would be. If you don't want to improve your system and that's good enough, fine. But you can't really stop those of us that are able to visualize the next step and break it down and see that the building blocks we're dealing with are a new kind, and learn how they build together into what we see. Because that's really the problem. We got a new kind of building block, and people are having trouble. How could you get this stuff around us? But they forget that the old building block couldn't tell you how animals express will. So these new building blocks, they're guaranteed to go together into the way that we saw, right? We see they go together before we saw what they were. So we know there's a way to use those building blocks to get this, and it's also not that complicated. That's not the complicated part of quantum mechanics, because probability turns out to be sort of fundamental. We have ancient tools, thousands of years of tools dealing with probability and statistics and stuff, and that's